Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
I'm chilling, bro. Just ready to talk some hoops. We're getting into an interesting topic today, my boy.
Yeah, 100%. We are we're about 10, 11 games into the season. Let's do a little checkup on the rookies. We're going to be doing some grading on the rookies today. Of course, we're going to have the Spotlight Player of the Week, and of course, we're going to end the episode with a draft and a quiz. As always, you know what to expect here. So we have another awesome episode lined up for you today. But before we get to this episode, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our personal accounts at TV on Basketball, at the /the Routine Jumper. Down in the description below, you can find those links over there. And in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, remember to follow us for the best daily made content on TikTok and Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit the like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you listen to our podcast on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, remember to just show a love as much as you can, review, all that good stuff. Jay, you ready to get into some rookie talk?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I named this episode Freshman Grades. I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like, your rookie, freshman, here are some basically your first term grades, maybe your midterm so far into the season. And we have some guys we're going to talk about here. Some of the guys that, of course, are some of the most noteworthy guys from the season so far. But then me and Jay also are going to add one of our, once to watch guys at the end of this list as well. We're going to have one each from there. But when we talk about rookies, it's impossible to not talk about Victor Wembanyama having probably like one of the most hyped up rookies in NBA history. And his play so far this season is basically feeding into that fact. With his great play so far. So, Jay, I'm going to throw this over to you. And again, we're doing a grading system. What grade would you give Wemby after his first, it says here, 11 games of the season?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a cool A- for Victor Wembanyama. I don't want to go ahead and give him an A+ right out the gate, even though I do feel like he's having like an all rookie season. He's having an all NBA caliber season defensively as well. Something I thought that was really interesting about him is that he has almost as many blocks this year as he has assists so far through the first 12 games.
Yeah.
He has 26 blocks to 27 assists. Talk about one crazy ratio. I wish he would rebound the ball a little bit more and get to the free throw line a little bit more. He's a guy that I feel like has this ability around the basket to be like, I really think that Wembanyama can get to the point of being like a foul merchant at some point, because I think people are going to take his size and his overall strength for granted. And I think that he has so much game as a finesse finisher that he can finish around the basket much better than people are going to give him credit for. But I just don't like the fact that he's taking so many threes and not being so much better around the basket. 5.5 3-point attempts per game is shooting 28% from back there. I love that he's experiencing the studio space in terms of, being active on the perimeter. But let's not turn Victor Wembanyama into Kevin Durant just because of all the comparisons. At the end of the day, I do think there should be some notability around him being a 7'3", 7'4" demon that can make a lot of stuff happen around the rim. Let's try to move a little bit closer to the basket there.
I agree with that. A minus. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good grade to give him. I'm gonna personally give him an A, just because he comes out to the season and he's already like guns a-blazing in terms of the way he's playing right now. Of course, you can't talk about a season without talking about that 38-point performance against the Phoenix Suns. Funnily enough, against Kevin Durant, but it's not even really the offense that I want to showcase here, even though he has been great offensively. This season, you can already see he has the potential to be one of those game breakers on defense. And it's not because he's super fast or anything. His length makes it so I feel like even something as simple as a pump fake means nothing to Victor Wembanyama. I've experienced it personally when watching the Toronto Raptors. People have been trying to do a pump fake, and when you think, oh, he's free for me, I can take the shot, this guy could just block from behind because of his freaking 8'1" wingspan. Like, his defensive ability, his ability to not only, contest jump shots like that, but able to pivot where it looks like you're guarding one guy, but he could just turn around and already contest a layup on the other side. Is something that we haven't seen from someone and who has the awareness of that's super, super young. And Victor Wembanyama is really experiencing that and actually showing off that defensive prowess that we thought that he could have at his size, but he's already like proven to be a very good defensive commodity. He is top 5 in blocks as well at 2.4 blocks per game. It's just going to continue to be like this all season long. The percentages, I'm not going to take too much into that just because it's a rookie type of thing, especially with the way that the Spurs use him. They use him like way too much on the perimeter. I do agree with that. But with the way he's playing, these percentages of like 43% from the field, 28% from three, 76% at the line, it could be worse, but it's actually pretty solid for him so far this year. I think someone like him is like it's basically his like rookie of the year to lose, and I think that his just ability so far has shown like even though maybe it's not like 20-10 or anything, he's showing why he's had so much hype coming into this season.
I mean, like you said, though, it's not 20 and 10, but it's dang near there. 18.6 and 9.3. So, I mean, he's putting up good numbers. I don't want to poo-poo him by saying that he has an A minus because, he's not shooting the ball well from three. I just think that his play style is more conducive to being much more effective in the mid-range and around the basket. I think he's stepping a little too far away from the basket, and they're putting a lot on him. We were joking about it a couple weeks ago about him playing so off the ball, yet somehow oddly having like a 30% usage rate, which sounds insane, especially for a rookie. But it's also reflecting. He leads his entire group amongst rookies in turnovers with 43. The next closest player is Asor Thompson at 26. So it's a lot of learning for Victor Wembanyama. And we understood it was going to be a learning curve. We understand that even though everybody was putting him in the LeBron James and Zion Williamson level prospects of the world, we still understood that there was going to be a learning curve for a guy with his skill set, with his size, with his build. All of those things are worth taking into consideration. I just think when you pair the turnovers with the more perimeter centric game for a guy who I think needs to learn how to get the game easy first, he's making the game harder on himself. I think the play style that he's going for is also hurting him early on in his development. I love that he's taking the three ball. I think it's going to be important for him down the line to have that in his bag. But I think as a rookie, you're playing 30 minutes a game. You got 30% usage rate. You're already averaging 18 and 9. Put your tail closer to the basket and give yourself more high look opportunities. As a big man at 7'4", 2.4 blocks is great, but you know what's not great? Shooting 43% from the field as a 7'4" big.
That's fair.
That's something that I just think is important, So, I mean, like I said, I think everybody glorifies Vic so much, so I don't want to come off as a hater or anything, but I also think we have to start trying to look at him with a little bit less grace and actually start breaking down his game a little bit. He's an elite player, and I think he's a guy that really could make a run for. I think Victor Wembanyama has real all-star capabilities this season as a rookie with the statistics that he's putting up. But I think what's going to really unlock him as a player to make this San Antonio Spurs team viable come down the line when we're talking about the play-in tournament and things of that nature on the back end of the season, it's going to be things like being more efficient from the field because we already know that he's a menace defensively. If he can be more efficient as a basketball player for this team, the team is elite defensively, and he's been an anchor for that. There's a lot to like about Vic this year, and I think that he can only get better if he's willing to kind of really step into the things that are going to make him great early.
Yeah, one of the things that I see in his game especially, and I think he should be taking advantage of this more, and you mentioned it earlier, the freaking mid-range jumper over like basically anyone in the league. No one is stopping that. And I feel like that could be like an automatic part of his game. Weird comparison, kind of like a little Marcus Aldridge, where he just like every time he did that face up, it felt like every mid-range jumper was going in. I think like something like that, but it really doesn't matter who you have on you because he's just gonna shoot over them anyway. So I think something like that, if he can like just master that this game, especially this year, and then like be a threat from the outside, you can see like just pure dominance from someone like Victor Wembanyama. And if he adds, so he adds it to his game, it should definitely be something that can like maybe even like he's mentioned, put him into that awesome conversation. So yeah, I have an A for Victor Wembanyama. Jay has an A minus, both putting him very highly because he's honestly been far and away the rookie of the year so far this year. Moving on to the third overall pick, probably the second most hyped prospect next to Victor Wembanyama this past draft, Scoot Henderson. He's currently injured right now, but so far this year, looking pretty rough. 8 points a game, 4.5 assists, 2 rebounds, basically shooting 9% from three, 34% from the field. and he's averaging like I'm trying to find his turnovers per game here. I can't seem to find there. 4 assists, 4 turnovers per game, basically near Wemby in terms of like their averages as well. Jay, let's I don't he's super young. He's definitely has some time, but for in the first 10 11 games, how are you grading Scoot Henderson?
Well, he's only played 5, so obviously we're gonna give him a little bit of a curve there as well. I'm gonna give Scoot. I'm gonna give him a D plus. I can't be too high on him right now. Again, 5 games out of an 11 to 12 game sample size is not a lot to work with, and I just don't see like. Here's the thing, and it was brought up on a podcast. Shout out to Dunked On podcast that I listen to pretty much every day when it comes to this stuff. They brought up something that was really interesting when you talk about these elite point guard prospects, right? When you look at guys where they come onto a team that you know is a bad team, right? You know it's a bad team. You're being picked in the top 2, top 3 in the league. You know you're not going to a team that's ready to play winning basketball right out of the gate. These rookie point guards are obviously I think you can make an argument that the point guard position is the hardest position to adapt to in the NBA as a rookie.
Yes.
Fair point, which is another reason why I think we should grade this on a curve. But something else that's really important is most rookie point guards still give you that wow factor game that shows you like, okay, this team's not good. They're not playing winning basketball. He's still trying to learn NBA speed. But we have this 1 or 2 game sample size that tells us like, oh, you know what? He definitely does belong though. So far this
Yeah.
season, I have not seen that game from Scoot Henderson. It's one of those things that really makes me a little worried about him overall because there's nothing that, again, 5 games. So there's not a lot to be able to work with. So I don't want to overblow this. But it's one of those things where, like, let's think about this. His game high is 11 points. Now, 11 points, 7 assists. I like the assist to turnover ratio. Only 5. Well, maybe not. I mean, it was 5 turnovers in that game, 7 assists. So maybe I don't like the turnover ratio. He also fouled out of that game.
That was the
So
Raptor one. I think that was the Raptor one. I was at that game, so I think I remember that.
there you go. So even that being his best performance, 11 points, but 5 turnovers to 7 assists. He did get 2 steals and a block, but he fouled out of the game. That's not something to be happy about. Another thing that I think is really hurting him is 2 of 21 on the season from beyond the arc. He's shooting less than 10%
Yes.
from 3.
And he's
That's
attempting
not
them. He's
working.
attempting them. He's attempting them too. So
And you like that he's attempting it, but it's one of those things that we're gonna worry about a lot. He has 20 turnovers and 20 personal fouls.
yes.
Like there's not a lot to like about what Scoot Henderson has done. But again, only a 5 game sample size as opposed to some of the other guys we're going to talk about who have played at least 9 to 11 games. I'm going to give my final answer for Scoot Henderson is I'm going to give him a solid D plus. I'm not going to go all the way to F or D minus. We're going to stop at D plus just because I still feel like there's something in there to like. They also are a heavy backcourt with Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Simons before he got injured, and obviously Shaden Sharp. So it's a lot to accommodate at once. But dude, it's not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go down to a D minus. I'm going down to a D minus for Scoot Henderson so far. I'm not going to go full F. I'm not going to give him full F, but I'll go down to D minus. I'm just trying to figure out, like, I was thinking of the scouting report we had, before the draft, saying that he's this explosive player that's able to, kind of Russell Westbrook-esque, where he just kind of like only himself is stopping him at the rim. He had like that explosive ability, like no one can stop him as a guard, kind of like a De'Aaron Fox to Russell Westbrook type mold. Like when I watch that game, especially like against the Portland Trailblazers, Jeremy Grant stood out to me. I see DeAndre Ayton stood out to me. I never really got that feel from Scoot Henderson. I just didn't think like even though he started basically every game, he's played 34 minutes in that game, played 36 minutes in the first game of the season. He just doesn't really like stand out. He's not really leaving his mark. He's finding guys, but again, the turnovers are just like killer for him so far this season. And I just think that when I'm like watching him play, it feels like everything that he does is a struggle. And maybe that's just like again adapting to the point guard position, being early in his NBA career. But whatever made him like those skills that made him the 3rd overall pick, none of that is being shown so far, which is why I'm grading this on not projecting going forward how it's going to be for the rest of the season, but on these 10 games so far, what we've expected from Scoot Henderson, nothing in his game so far for me that I've seen has translated to the NBA so far. Hopefully, this injury. Of course, we're not praying for injuries or anything. We're not saying that we're hoping for it, but I'm just like it's a way for him to kind of reset, kind of reevaluate, to look at what he's done his first 5 games and say, you know what, maybe I was doing too much here. Maybe I should be attempting less threes because clearly they're not falling right now. Trying to find ways where he can like find his spots on. I think like him coming back from his injury now is just trying to find like where he feels most comfortable in the game and trying to master those and just kind of like work his way up from there. Because I think he feels pressure about trying to be the third overall pick and trying to be that Damian Lillard replacement. You have to remember he is trying to fill the shoes of the best Portland Trailblazer of all time. There's a lot of pressure to that, especially if you're a rookie. So I think this time to maybe just like sit, like to relax, step back, see what's been like really struggling with so far, and trying to move past that. I think it's a great time for him. But yeah, I got to give him a D- so far.
Yeah, to kind of final thoughts on Scoot Henderson. I think one of the biggest things is he needs to take advantage of the fact that he has a viable lob threat in DeAndre Ayton on the floor. I know that this kind of hurts now that they're not going to have Robert Williams for a while.
For the whole season, yeah, we haven't even talked about
Yeah,
that on the podcast. He's out for
yeah,
the whole season. Yeah.
yeah, because I think he elected to get surgery, right?
Yes, he did.
So obviously that changes the dynamic a little bit because remember we were talking about there being a potential like lineup where hey they both play next to each other talking about DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams. Now obviously that isn't the case, but I think that you still look at a guy in DA who can be a really good pick and roll threat for you, and that was that was the bread and butter for Scoot Henderson coming out of the G League. People were saying that he's played pro level basketball and he's been able to analyze pick and roll basketball at a high level for 2 years before coming to the NBA, and being able to come into the league as an effective pick and roll point guard out the gate is one of the best overall skills you can have as a developmental guy at the point guard position as a rookie. Him coming into the season with that ability, we need to see more of it because from my understanding, I don't believe before he got injured, he got a lot of pick and roll possessions.
Yeah.
And when he was getting those pick and roll possessions, they weren't finishing in baskets. So it's going to be something interesting to get into. It's going to be interesting to see how he coexists with guys like Shaedon Sharpe, who's on the rise right now for the Portland Trailblazers as well. So it's gonna be a lot to look into.
Yeah, I still have hope for him, and of course, we're not like counting him out 5 games this season. No way, no how. But at the end of the day, we have to like look at what he's done so far, and he hasn't shown anything close to that top 2 prospect that we know that he can be. I just hope that we can like be able to like see flashes of it, and hopefully he can like when he comes back from his injury that we can get the most out of him afterwards as well. So yeah, Scoot Henderson, rough start to the season. Let's see if he's gonna be able to bounce back. Next player we're gonna be talking about, technically not a rookie. Would you call this guy a freshman that was held back? I don't know. But we're gonna be talking about him anyways. Let's talk about Chet Holmgren, the foil to Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
By the way, they had their matchup last night. Dude, please do not watch the highlights of that game. That was an absolute freaking disaster class. Both guys did not play well at all. But so far this season, Chet Holmgren having a really, really good start. He's hitting his threes, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game. Wemby is averaging 2.4 blocks per game. Chet is near up there as well at 2.2 as well. He's having a great start to this season. Glad to see him on the court there with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are playing very well to start off the year. Jay, what grade would you give him in his second sort of stint as a number one as a first year player?
So I'm actually gonna go A- for this one as well. I know I'm a tough grader, but we're going through 10 games. I think I'll be a little bit nicer when we get to midterm season. So once we get around that 40 game mark or we get to that quarter mark around like 25 games, I'll be a little less harsh. But when it comes to Chet Holmgren, like you said, a perfect foil to Victor Wembanyama across the board. When you look at just everything he's been able to do this season, also playing 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
7.5 rebounds, like you mentioned earlier, the 2.2 blocks per game. Shooting 52.7% from the field. Still not necessarily great for a center, but he's taking 4 threes per game and he's hitting 46%. This is the exact opposite of Victor Wembanyama on that sense, right? He's taking a little less from beyond the arc. Now he has a better setup and supporting cast with him in the Oklahoma City Thunder. That should be taken into consideration as well.
Heavily improved from Trey Jones to Chico Alexander.
Yeah, definitely. But 3.7 3-point attempts per game, hitting 46% of them. I think that's definitely great. You also look at where he's at in terms of the blocks per game, or the blocks like we were talking about with Victor Wembanyama. He has 24 blocks to 29 assists. But here's the other thing that I think is really important, and this comes down to play style, but it also comes down to a supporting cast, like I mentioned earlier. 22 turnovers, and Chet Holmgren has been a plus 20, a plus 54 on the court for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Victor Wembanyama, again, this is where things like usage rate come into contention. Chet Holmgren, like I mentioned beforehand, a overall plus minus of plus 54. Victor Wembanyama, on the other hand, minus 60. Like when we're talking about these guys being foils, and it's in a lot of different ways. I think if there was anybody to give Victor Wembanyama a real run for his money in terms of rookie of the year, so far, based on the first 11 to 12 games, it's going to be Chet Holmgren. He is going stride for stride with Wemby. And everywhere where Wemby isn't doing well, that's where Chet is thriving, and vice versa. This is going to be a real clash of the Titans, I think, at the top of the rookie of the year race.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, Victor Wembanyama's getting more opportunities, 100%, but Chet is going into a system where, man, the Thunder team is looking really damn good to start off the year, potentially being like a top 6 seed in the West. So definitely different scenarios. And Chet said it himself. He's gonna be the guy who's gonna take shots when it comes to him. He's not gonna force anything. He's not gonna be the one creating, because he knows that he has guys in the team that can do that, especially when you have 3 really good ball handlers, one being Shai Alexander, one of the best in the league. Then you also have Jalen Williams and Josh Giddey as well. He's not going to have the ball most of the time. He's going to be in the receiving end of the passes from them. So he's going to take the shots when he gets them, and he's going to try and make the most out of them. Chet is having a really good year, and this is what I was thinking of, like, in terms of the race between him and Victor Wembanyama, is that, sure, Victor is going to have the better stats, but what if the stats are similar enough, and Chet's like a top 4 seed in the West? Then how much weight does that carry? Especially if Victor's going to be like a bottom 2. So this is why I think this is like rookie of the year race is very, very interesting. Chet is able to shoot the 3. He's still playing well defensively. It's just the national coverage on Wemby is just crazy. We talked about it before the show. We've seen podcast episodes just called Wemby Watch, just to see like how he's like. We've seen like articles and stuff called Wemby Watch where they're just like tracking him like 10 games to the season, where Chet Holmgren is not getting near as much as that media attention, but he's still producing very well. Another thing that's been really good for him, 90% from the free throw line, very, very nice at almost 4 attempts per game. I think that I'm going to give him an A- as well, maybe just slightly below Wemby, just because it feels like Victor has has shown us the superstar potential compared to Chet, but he is playing his role extremely well. And I think that this was something that the Thunder were sorely missing in the years prior, where they didn't have that center. They didn't have that guy to either space the floor from the 5 position or someone just to be that defensive anchor. Now they have that Chet Holmgren, and he's sliding right in when they already have 3 fantastic guards there. And again, Williams, Giddey, and Shai Alexander as well. Fit in Chet Holmgren to that mix. Everything's looking great. I'm gonna give him an A- so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the national media on. I'm gonna put the national media on blast right now. Look, I understand that this man Victor Wembanyama is getting all the usage rate and he's getting all the plays. He's attempted 16 shots per game. Chet Holmgren is not taking a backseat to nobody. He is still getting up 10 shots a game. Don't get me wrong. It's not one of those things where he's playing at a superstar level. There's guys right behind. There are plenty of guys on his roster that can play up to that capability where he's not required to. But he's not letting his role as the 4th option force him to shy away from being active in this offense. He is still taking 10 shots a game to Wemby's 16. Wemby is shooting 43%. Chet Holmgren is shooting 52.7%. Of the 5 rookies who are shooting double-digit attempts per game, Chet Holmgren has the best percentage by far. The next best behind him is Brandon Miller at 44.4. Like, Chet Holmgren might not be popping off your TV screen the way Victor is, but don't sleep. Don't sleep. My boy is not taking a back seat just because he's the 4th option. He's only the 4th option on paper.
Yeah. Yes, he is. And again, that Thunder team is just legit. And honestly, the Thunder team that's continuing to play well, and if you have Chet Holmgren, maybe even just improving a little bit on those numbers, that's going to keep the race close. And that's what you really want to see at the end of the year. So, yeah, shout out to Chet. He's having a phenomenal season. It's going to be a great Rookie of the Year race, even though, again, Wemby's getting the national attention. He shows some love to Chet Holmgren. He's been absolutely fantastic. Moving on to the next player, we're going to be talking about the number 2 overall pick, the guy who which like people were shocked that he went number 2. How can you take this guy over Scoot Henderson, Mr. Brandon Miller? He's having a solid year so far. He started off the year off the bench, but after the injury to Terry Rozier, he's been getting some scoring gig as well. Having a solid season so far. But Jay, what grade are you gonna give Brandon Miller to start off the year?
I'm gonna give Brandon Miller a C plus, man. I'm gonna be honest. I like what I see in comparison to what he was able to do at summer league. Definitely looks a lot better, especially athletically during the regular season. But
Yeah.
I think the main thing that's worrying me is the three ball isn't falling, bro. Three ball is not landing at all. He's taking 3 a game, shooting under 30% from beyond the arc. It's one of those things where I figured that especially with Miles Bridges being out of the lineup, he was
Mm-hmm.
going to get a lot more time to shine. Then you throw in Terry Rozier missing time as well. It just seemed like the perfect opportunity for Brandon Miller to burst onto the scene. And I don't feel as though we've really felt him so far through the first 9 games that he's able to play. Now, he's missed time with injury. I think he's out now, actually, as well, right? Or is he back on the floor?
Yeah. I mean, I think like with Brandon Miller, like him coming off the bench to start the year was great because he like was able just to do well against like second units, right?
Mm.
So he was able just to come in and do well there, and you could see like those Paul George. I know it's weird because he said, I don't know if you remember from during the draft
He
process.
said Paul George is his GOAT, yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things I saw, especially when he was coming off the bench, the smoothness of his game is actually there for someone at the 3 position. He had that smoothness factor about him, and I liked it when he came off the bench. I think it's when he was starting that's when he was like, maybe not used to maybe being in that position or not, but that's when he started falling off, and then he had the injury as well. But yeah, no, Brandon Miller has been like pretty solid this year. You said you gave him a C plus, right? I think I'm gonna give him like somewhere around the same, maybe like a B minus or something. But he hasn't wowed us, but he also has shown that he has that potential there to become, one of the building stones of this Hornets team, who has started off like rough. They've looked like one of the worst teams in the league. But he's been like a nice little bright spot. But yeah, he's been like I think like he deserves like a little bit more love, even though he's probably not gonna be in rookie of the year consideration. He's pretty damn solid.
Yeah, I think Brandon Miller is currently out. That was one of the things I was asking about earlier because I didn't realize if he was still out or not. I know he's missed a little
Yeah.
bit of time, but so Brandon Miller's out right now, so obviously that's also going to affect his sample size. But another thing that I saw in the news was that they were talking about the idea that when Miles Bridges comes back, he is going to be heavily involved within both the
Yeah.
offense and the defense moving forward for this team. I feel like that's another thing that's going to knock him down. I think him being injured paired with the idea that they have for Miles Bridges when he comes back are 2 things that are really going to hurt his development in the early going. That's why I got to go with the C plus because I just feel like when he was on the floor, he could have really taken the opportunity by the horns, but instead, I feel like we just got to see little glimpses of why maybe he could have a long career, but not why we believe that he could be one of the best forwards in the NBA at some point. Like we didn't get anything that says, okay, maybe not yet, but all NBA talent down the line. I don't think we've gotten that glimpse yet. It's the same.
We
I think
haven't.
the
Yeah.
same argument could be made for Scoot Henderson that's being
Yeah.
made for Brandon Miller now. Is that we haven't seen that flash yet that gives us any indications to validate where they were selected or why they were selected or even more so why they were highly regarded in the first place coming out of their draft class.
I mean, whether you feel, I mean, those comments about Miles Bridges being a part of the offense like heavily is already like a topic in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you believe he should still be like as a member of the Hornets, but at the same time, like I feel like you drafted this man second overall. Is there like a way you can like get him in there? Because if you think of the starting lineup, it's gonna be LaMelo, it's gonna be Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges. If they say he's gonna be as heavily involved as he is, he's probably gonna be starting once again like he did 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
PJ Washington, Mark Williams. PJ Washington and Mark Williams are having solid starts this season. They're not leaving the starting lineup. Terry Rozier has been a staple with LaMelo Ball in that backcourt, and Miles Bridges, they seem to still want him in the future plans. Does he fit anywhere there? Is there like a way that he can maybe be a 2? Like, like early Paul George? Like where he was
Ooh, that's a
with the
good
Indiana
thought,
Pacers?
TV. That's a good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it in his early development to go the Paul George route. If that's the player comp, Dive completely in it. If the player call for Brandon Miller is to compare him to Paul George, go deep into the weeds. And that includes how he early on developed. Being able to unlock his three-point shot, unlock his development as a defensive guy on the perimeter, and really bring that out. Start out by putting him against twos, not these bigger 3 and D wing players or these elite two-way three wings that we have of today. The two guard position is not as oversaturated as it was back then when Paul George was having to guard the Dwayne Wades of the world, right, at the two guard position. The three position was much lighter back then, so
Yeah.
he had almost gotten his development at the shooting guard position a little bit easier when he bumped down to the small forward. He had the speed advantage. He had the physical chops to be able to match it. I think a similar thing could be said for Brandon Miller now, but in a different stage of life. He maybe needs to guard lower down the totem pole first and work his way up towards those wings. I think that might actually be a good way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm just looking at the roster too. I mentioned all those guys. I forgot, like, honestly, I forgot that Gordon Hayward is on this roster. So it's just kind of like doesn't help his case as well. So it's just a weird logjam because the Hornets are a bad team, but they have some like NBA players. If you really do think about it, they have some guys. They are playing this season trying to like fight for a play-in spot. They were just there like 2 seasons ago. So I don't know. It's a weird position for him, and I feel like I don't want to be a situation like where, you know, in the past, like a Marvin Bagley, or like where he just gets put in a bad scenario, even though he's a solid player, he just gets put in a bad scenario and he just doesn't get the opportunity that he needs to be able to flourish. But it's again, this Hornets team is already a freaking dumpster fire in of itself. So
Yeah.
putting Brandon Miller in this situation, especially a rookie, might not be the greatest. But I think there's still something there. I give him a B minus. Jay gave him a C plus. We haven't seen that special yet in Brandon Miller, but again, there's still a lot of time. So hopefully he can like come back from his injury and see if he can like, make his mark on this Hornets team. Moving on to the next guy, we have to talk about not Amen Thompson, who was the 4th overall pick. We're gonna be going with the 5th overall pick over there in Detroit, Asar Thompson, because so far this season, when you're talking about defense, this guy has to be like already all defense consideration. Watching the Pistons this year, pairing him with Jalen Duren, there's some promise there in terms of like the Pistons being a future, really good defense. Jay, the offense needs some bit of a work, but how would you grade Asar Thompson's season so far?
I gotta give him a B plus, man. I can't go all the way to A
Yeah.
because the offense is not there yet. The three ball is atrocious. I think he's shooting like 14% from back there. But defensively, I mean, you've already got guys like Draymond Green who are perennial defensive All NBA guys saying guys like the you already have guys like Draymond Green, who's a perennial All NBA defender, saying that guys like the Thompson twins and Victor Wembanyama are making him worried about his positioning on All NBA teams. Like
Yes.
that's the kind of impact that, especially a guy like I think it speaks more volumes for Asar because he's been on the floor more frequently than
Yeah.
a man who's missed a lot of time due to injury in the early going. But 23 blocks at the guard position is crazy.
Crazy.
Like
He almost had a
crazy.
5 game this year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at the order for rookies in terms of blocks per game, it goes Victor Wembanyama 26, Chet Holmgren at 24, Asar Thompson at 23. Like, that's insane. And
Yes.
he's got 16 steals, which is more than Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, who both have 11 apiece. And the other
He has
thing
more
is,
rebounds than them.
I was just about to say that's the thing that I think is even more impressive. Asar Thompson, 124 rebounds. Victor Wembanyama at 7'4", 102. Chet Holmgren at 7'1", 83. Like Asar Thompson, actually amongst all rookies, he leads all the rookie class in rebounds, and that's above guys even like
Right.
Derek Lively, who only has 69. Right? So you go across the board, and at the guard position, at least defensively, you love everything you're seeing. It's just my nervousness about the offense is something that has always kind of been there, and it's gonna be there for a while. But he's a guard averaging 12 and 10. Like, come on, bro. That's
He's he's
insane.
he's really, really good. And honestly, the fact that his offense is already at like a 12 points per game, yes, he is like starting all of his games, but it's not horrible. It's
Mm-mm.
something that could be worked on. He's attempting like 3 free throws attempts a game. He's hitting like two and a bit. He's at like a 70-something%. That's like not horrible. The turnovers are down. He's not fouling as much. He's only averaging like 3 fouls per game. The assists, almost 4 assists per game. He's just a well-rounded player. And this is just his first season. Imagine when he builds his NBA body, when he gets the vets around him, tries to like understand his game more, where he's like most comfortable at. This guy could do it on the basketball court. And I'm not saying that he's going to be someone that's going to average eventually like 20 points a game. I don't think that might be, and I don't think that's something that's going to be in his game. But seeing him potentially at maybe like a 17, 11, and like 6 assists type of guy, that is a all-star level player in this league. And if you have that defensive like acumen, that defensive like prowess that he has already, this guy can with his like developing offense could be a future All NBA player. I'm gonna give him a B+ too, just because the Pistons, yes, they are the worst team in basketball so far in terms of record, but they've hit on this pick. They've hit on it with the Jalen Duren pick last year. Now adding him here, they are starting to build an identity around Cade Cunningham that he's going to be our main guy as our source of offense, but we're going to have some dogs on the inside on the perimeter that is going to make it very difficult for them. Even though the Pistons are 2-10, there are a lot of like under 10 point per game losses. Like they are losing, but they are losing. Can I say this? Losing in style, in a sense, in that sort of manner. I don't know, but Asar Thompson has been like one of their biggest bright spots, and I think he's gonna be a good player for a long time. Yeah, B+ for me. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I think my last thing on Asar Thompson is just this. I think that he's already carving out an Andre Iguodala-like career for himself.
Yeah.
He's got the
Yes.
real opportunity to come out as a potential All-Star and All-NBA player out the gate and show that kind of upside, especially because we know that the athleticism is something that's going to be a real calling card for him in the early stages of his career. But he's going to be a dude who maybe makes 2 or 3 All NBA teams, whether it be All NBA overall or All NBA in terms of defensively. He's going to be a guy who I think maybe makes an All Star team or two. But I also think he's a guy that's going to carve out a long career as a glue guy that's going to be able to fit on any team. Because, like you said, he's on a team right now that lacks spacing, lacks creativity offensively, lacks
Yeah.
diversity offensively. Yet he's averaging 12 and 10, still assisting the ball at a relatively good rate, averaging nearly a steal and a half a game and nearly 2 blocks at the guard/wing position. And the thing that we're talking about as the biggest knock for him is he needs to hit the 3 ball better. Like that's one of those things that's gonna come with time, which means that there's so much more to like about his future. And I'm really excited to see what Asar Thompson can turn into, because if this is what the beginning of his career looks like as an All NBA caliber defender on the perimeter, he's only going to get better when his body fills out and when his savvy gets better and when he overall grows as a player IQ wise in the NBA.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they got some pieces there. It's just about trying to like fill out the rest of the team, like you mentioned, with more creative options on offense. Because besides Cade Cunningham, there's not much going on there. They're still continuing to start Killian Hayes, which surprises the hell out of me. But at the same time, again, Asar Thompson, one of the biggest bright spots so far this year. I could think comfortably at that third spot in terms of Rookie of the Year. I mean, we know the top two is going to be freaking Chet and Victor Wembanyama. I think Asar right now is like safely putting himself at the number 3 right now in terms of Rookie of the Year rankings, I guess. Jay, I'm going to throw this over to you now. We have our 2 non-lottery picks that we want to talk about. Who's the one guy that you want to talk about, and like what grade would you give him to start off the year?
So it's funny because we're talking about a Pistons player. I'm going to stick with the Pistons. Let's talk about Marcus Sasser. This is a guy who I think just has really given himself a real dogfight as a part of this Detroit Pistons team. Because you have to be real, man. Let's be honest. When we talk about the guard rotation for the Detroit Pistons right now, it's not solidified overall, right?
Besides Cade, yeah.
Yeah, like if you really think about this team overall, like with the way they're lined up, it doesn't seem like they necessarily have any real faith in anybody in particular. And I hate that because Jaden Ivey, I thought, had a really good end to last season. But when you think about it, they've been playing Killian Hayes a lot. And it's been with this ideology, or at least that's what Monty Williams says, is because they're trying to focus on the defensive end of the ball. That's probably more telling about Jaden Ivey than it is about Killian
Killian
Hayes
Hayes.
in terms of the fact that Killian Hayes is getting a lot of the starts and getting a good handful of the minutes. That's probably more telling on what they feel about Jaden Ivey in the early going. But I think the most important thing to me is just the fact that with nobody truly solidifying themselves at that guard position outside of Cade Cunningham, I think the fact that Marcus Sasser has played so well in this early going of this season, it just puts him in a really good spot. And I don't want to overblow anything when it comes to this team because there's still a lot to look at. One thing in particular is you mentioned them losing a lot of games by under 10 points. Let's remember that Alec Burks has missed already like half their season. And
Monty Morris
Alec
hasn't even
Burks,
played yet either.
yeah, those are two big guys for this team in terms of Alec Burks offensively and Monty Morris as another guy who could be like a drink stirrer, right, at the point guard
Yeah.
position, who have not played a lot, if not, like you said with Monty Morris, have not played at all, that still can bring a little bit of flair to this team that they still seem to desperately need. There's a lot to look at, but there's a lot going on in this guard position. And it seems like in the meantime, with guys like Monte and Alec being out, Marcus Sasser has stepped up in a real way, and he's a dude who I mean he's not standing out in any kind of crazy way. He's had a pretty good game here or there, but he's a dude that I think talent wise might slowly be solidifying himself as their most interesting guard prospect outside of Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson. That might be a little aggressive, but
Yeah.
we'll see. It just all depends. But I like what Marcus Sasser has done so far this season.
Yeah, and I think there's a theme with a lot of like especially the standout rookies here. It When I see Marcus Sasser play on the floor, it doesn't seem like he's a rookie. He feels like someone who knows what he's doing on the court, knows his role, and he takes the spots. That one game where he scored like 26 points in the game, like 23 of them came in the second half, where he just let the game come to him. He had like 6 rebounds in that as well. I just feel like he just like whenever he's on the floor, I feel like he's there to make the right decision. And I think with like I mean the competition to guard position between Jay and Ivy and Killian Hayes is just kind of like both of these guys are both like erratic type of players. Having someone who's like a bit less, erratic, a bit out there, less crazy out there
The
with like
steady
Marcus
hand.
Sasser, a
Yeah.
steadier hand, yeah. Having that with Marcus Sasser is a good thing for them because Cade is already averaging like 6 turnovers a game this year. And if you throw in Jaden Ivey or Killian Hayes in the mix, that's just gonna like help add to that. Having someone like Marcus Sasser to kind of slow things down, kind of play at his own pace, and just like again, not look like a rookie. He feels like he's like a couple years into the league, like knowing like how to pick his spots. It's nice, and it's like a good problem for the Pistons to have, where they have like I mean they're trying out a bunch of guys. That's the reason they brought in James Wiseman. It's the same reason why they bring in Marvin Bagley, where they're just trying to figure out who's gonna be here, who's not gonna be here long term.
Mm.
So far, Marcus Sasser feels like, as a 25th overall pick, this draft class is looking damn good for them, where he could maybe not be a starter, but someone who's going to be like a long time, reliable bench guy, potentially maybe be a starter if you want to move Cade to the 2. Who knows? But at the same time, he just feels like he's someone that can like has a good feel for the game and can like produce when asked upon. He's not playing a lot of minutes so far this year. He's only averaging like 20. Move that up a bit, I think you could see that the numbers go up as well.
Yeah, I like Marcus game. I like Marcus's game. I've liked him since I think it was his like not last year, but the year before with Houston. He's a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's got guts. He's willing to take big shots in big moments. He's gonna be a dude who I think down the line ends up winning some basketball games for the Detroit Pistons for real.
100%. Also, shout out to him. He was like, first, also I think a big part of him like being like such like a mature player already at his age is because he's one of those like older rookies. He's like 23 years old, and I think like you kind of need those guys on your team as well to kind of like solidify or like bring some stability to like a position on your team. But shout out to him as well. He's basically like born a day before me. We're both basically the same age. He's almost my birthday twin. So shout out to Marcus Sasser for that as well. Next, my guy I wanted to show love to here. I mean, I talked about the Heat the other day and how Bam Adebayo has been playing really well. Their first round pick, Jaime Jaquez Jr., has proven to be one of those Miami Heat players where you just throw him in and he's already producing. 9 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. He started 3 games so far already this year, but he's at 50% from the field, almost 90% from the free throw line. Sure, his 3 points could be better, but he's doing a little bit of everything, fighting on the defensive end, averaging a steal a game, can rebound, can pass a little. I think when I see someone like Jaime Jaquez, he's just like someone who I feel like is going to be the perfect 5th or 4th starter on a really good team. And I think showing that already this early in his career has been great. Jay, what type of grade would you give him so far?
I didn't actually put a grade on Marcus Sasser. I'd probably give him like a C+ right now. But for Jaime Jaquez, I think I'd probably go around like a solid B minus. I think he's just been really effective. It's Heat culture clicking in, man. He's one of those guys that's just been able to step in and do his job. He's not doing too much, but he's doing just enough to make you feel good about him being on the floor. One of the biggest things that obviously just makes you worried about this entire class is that the 3-point shooting for the class hasn't been super great through the first 10 to 12 games. But that's not something worth really gassing up just yet. Jaime Jaquez, I bring him up only because almost 3 attempts per game, shooting 28%. But let's be real, the Heat don't have that much spacing on the roster either.
Really,
So,
especially with Tyler Hero injured as well. So that doesn't help. That doesn't really help.
Yeah, but he's been a net positive player, and that's always something that you have to be happy about when you talk about these rookie players. He's plus 16 in terms of his plus minus with his team, and this is a team that, like I said beforehand, ain't been too great, but they've really caught fire as of late, especially with the rise of Bam Adebayo being a little bit more aggressive offensively. TV, we've been banging the drum for that for a little while now, so I ain't going to let that rant start out in this podcast. But I will say Jaime Jaquez is going to be a player that I think is going to be really effective for them all season long, and they're going to need him to. We were talking about this before the season started. Their depth is not impressive, which means that guys like Jaime Jaquez are going to have to play well. And look, they truly trust him already. 23 minutes a game as a rookie for a Miami Heat team that doesn't just give minutes to anybody, right? They don't just waste their roster spots. They don't just waste valuable minutes. Even when guys are injured, they'll give them to dudes who they think are going to go out and play at a high level or play with a certain kind of attitude. Jaime Jaquez earning 23 minutes a game already. It says something. If it doesn't say something about his game, it at least says something about his character.
I mean, Nikola Jovic has been part of the system for 3 years now, and even this year, he's only played like 2 games this year, and he's been a first round pick for them. So the fact that Jaime Jaquez Jr. has already elevated himself to like 6-man status for the Heat team already, it's very telling. They've been banging the drum on here since summer league, since the draft started. He knew that he was his guy, especially with the loss of someone like Max Strus, that you're going to need someone there to fill up those minutes. He's been great so far. I'm going to be in the same boat as you. I'm going to give him a B-. He's been really good, and I think that he is someone, again, probably not right now, but in a couple years' time, don't be surprised when he's like that 4th starter, kind of like, what's a good example of this? Maybe like an Aaron Gordon type, maybe like a KCP, sort of like in that range where he's like, maybe we'll give you like a 13, 15 points per game, but he's going to be like a key cog into a championship team. So Jaime Jaquez, first season so far, he's been absolutely great. Yeah, I'm going to give him a B- as well. But yeah, those are the rookies we're going to be talking about. Let us know down below, what are your grades for any of these rookies? If there's anyone that you thought we should talk about, or any rookies that you want to highlight and give grades for them as well, put them down in the comments section below. Next up, we're going to go to is a Wednesday staple that we're going to do, and that is the player spotlight. Last week, Jay talked about Miles Turner. We talked about how great his season's been so far. Shout out to him as well. He hit a big 3 in that game yesterday, ending the 8-game winning streak of the Philadelphia 76ers. He played pretty well there, alongside Tyrese Halliburton, who's been all world right now so far this year. But yeah, we talked about Miles Turner last year, and this week we're going to be talking about someone who honestly should have been talked about already. Because we talked about the Timberwolves in the last episode, talked about how great they've been, I was looking back, I was editing, and I can't believe we didn't mention this man. Mr. Naz Reid. The guy who got the bag in the offseason. People were like, why would you re-sign him when you have Karl-Anthony Towns already? Rudy Gobert under contract. What makes Naz Reid so valuable that you have to sign him to this big extension? He's proving it this year, man. He's having a freaking fantastic season so far, averaging basically career highs all over the place. 13 points a game, 4 rebounds, 53.9% from the field. Again, a career high. But the biggest jump for him, 44% from 3, I was watching this guy's games, and he kind of gives me like Bobby Portis vibes, where you can like throw it to him on a fast break, and he can finish like tough layups. He can go one on one, back him down because he's that type of like big body sort of wide frame center who can like take you to the rim. He'll go to the free throw line. He's averaging like 94% from the free throw line, which is pretty crazy. Um, he's just a really good player, and like when you have like someone who's elite defensively and Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns who does everything on the offensive end, someone who could just play their role and like pick up their spots very nicely off the bench, and Naz Reid is a great addition to this team. And I think that again, we didn't talk about it in the last one, but he deserves a lot of love, and it's a big reason why the Timberwolves have been off to a fantastic start this year.
Yeah, man. You know I love me some Naz Reid. He ends up coming up on the podcast, not as much as Trey Jones. I mean, not as much as Tyus Jones, but his name floats around this podcast. Like you said beforehand, career highs across the board. 44% from the 3-point line this year is huge, especially because it's on higher volume. It's the highest amount of attempts in his career as well
Yes.
at 4.3. The next highest in terms of percentage was 35.1. He was only taking 2.5 attempts per game. That was his second year in the league. Here we are 3 years removed from that, and he's taking more threes and he's hit them at a high clip. He's got a really high effective field goal percentage. I hate to go all the nerd stat stuff, but as a six man, you got to highlight the effectiveness and the efficiency in his time on the floor. He's on a team with two established big men, and he's still coming in and making a real impact off the bench. You got to love it, especially on a team that's a lot more defensive oriented these days.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like there's some games, especially this year, where Cat has like fouled out of a game. He hasn't really been hitting his shots. You could trust Naz Reid to finish these games, man, because you know that he's gonna make the right play when you need to like throw it down to him down low. He's gonna be able to hit the shots when he can. And now with the added ability of his 3-point shot, and like you mentioned, on the highest volume of his career, almost averaging 2 threes per game, just adds a whole element to that bench. This team is looking very good so far, and I think that contract that was given to him, even though I kind of question it just because of their glut at the big man position already, it's very much warranted. Naz Reid is becoming one of the better 6 men in the league, and to be honest, I mean we're gonna talk about bench players later on. He's in that contention for that 6 man of the year spot right now, and you love to see it. Any final thoughts on Naz Reid?
Just that he's one of those guys that I think is going to get a lot of love on this podcast when we can. I mean, he's one of those dudes that falls into the category of just when you put him in the game, he's going to do good things for you. Like I said, same way Tyus, I would say the same way you would bring up a guy like Jordan Clarkson, even like there's just a handful of guys that when you talk about them, whatever it is that you need them to do, they can come into the game and do it at a really high level. Naz Reid doesn't get a lot of love because there's already two all-star big men, and then you got then you've got Anthony Edwards, and then you've got an all NBA defensive caliber guy in Jaden McDaniels. There's a lot of other guys to talk about in terms of the national media when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But Naz Reid, if you watch the games, you know that when he comes onto the floor, like you said, a Bobby Portis, a Jordan Clarkson, like there's a handful of guys across the league that you point to, Norman Powell, where you say when they come onto the floor coming off the bench, they're going to come in and make things happen and be difference makers on the floor for their team. Naz Reid needs to be in that kind of conversation. I think if he isn't already, we got to start bringing that up a lot more. He's in that caliber, bro.
Yeah, he's very good. And again, 6 man of the year race, expect him to be in that conversation, especially if he keeps up his play right now. But yeah, that's our player spotlight. We're going to be throwing it back to Jay for next week's one. So we expect this as a Wednesday staple in terms of, one of those segments, kind of like the draft, kind of like the quiz. This is what you're going to expect on a Wednesday. Focusing on players. I mean, like we talked about Miles Turner and Naz Reid. We're not going to get them like that much, like tough, maybe like a specific segment on like a normal show. But these are guys that you definitely have to keep your eye on for sure. Yeah. Next up, we're going to be going on to another staple of the show, which is the NBA draft. And this time, we're going to keep it plain and simple. We are going to try to create the best lineup with bench players. Now, how do we determine who are the bench players? We have a list in front of us of the guys who have the most bench points off the bench, of most points coming off the bench. And also, we have a chance to look at some depth charts to see if these guys fall into like that bench category where they're a backup for someone else in their team. It's not really objective, but at the same time, some of these guys may have starts here or there, but at the end of the day, we know that their role is coming off the bench and providing it for their team. So we're gonna try to build the best lineup using those guys from the bench. Jay, how you feeling about this
I
draft?
like I like this one, man. This is one of those that's like not too complicated, pretty simple in terms of bringing up a couple of guys who definitely stand out. I think the other thing too is going with six man. We're not gonna have too many all-star caliber players, but they're gonna be guys you're gonna have to keep your eye on. This is kind of this kind of draft is almost like a perfect segue to our player spotlights because always gonna be the ones where we bring light to players that are gonna be impactful even if they're not in the headlines.
100%. You know how these drafts go. Jay gets the first pick, I get the next two, and we're gonna keep going it serpentine style. So Jay, you get the first overall pick. Who are you gonna draft in the best bench players draft or the all bench team? It sounds bad, but you know what we mean.
Yeah, I think right now the first guy I gotta go with is Malcolm Brogdon.
Malcolm Brogdon of the Portland Trailblazers. He's in that weird position because Anthony Simons is injured that he has to maybe play more minutes than he was expected to. But
Yeah.
yeah, we know he's like when everyone's healthy, when Scoot and Anthony Simons is healthy, he's coming off the bench. That is a very good pick for your guard position. I get the next two, and honestly, I want to build my backcourt right away. Give me Chris Paul at the point guard position,
Okay.
and then give me Alex Caruso at the two guard. I think I think both of those guys again, Chris Paul as Mr. Setter Upper. This is the first year he's basically come off the bench his entire career. He's been pretty solid there. And Alex Caruso, one of the best defensive players in on the perimeter, especially at the guard position. You know he's able to hit the three. You know he's able to handle the ball when need be. I think both of those guys are able to complement each other very well in the backcourt, and they're also going to be able to set other guys up. So give me those two guys to start off with.
Chris Paul is a really good one, by the way. I like that one a lot. Someone else that I think would be really dope. Um, Shout out to him because he's kind of going through stuff on a physical level. But another guy who I think has been one of the better budget ballers in the NBA this year, give me Kelly Oubre. Been
Yes,
really effective
exactly.
this year so far in his time with Philadelphia. Was carving out a real good like role for himself. Currently in the hospital, doing relatively okay, but he's gonna miss some real time this season after the little hit and run incident that he ran into recently. So shout out to him. I want to give him some love because I know he's gonna be out of sight, out of mind for a little while. But when he was on the floor for the Sixers earlier on, dude, this guy was playing out of his mind, and you love to see it. And I think the other guy I'm gonna go with is Malik Monk.
Very nice. Very good picks. Kelly Oubre, man, the fact that he averaged like 20 points a game last year in Charlotte and just got a minimum deal from the 76ers feels like an absolute robbery at this point.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate with the whole car accident thing. Prayers up to Kelly Oubre. Hopefully he can still come back this season. But man, he's been a great budget baller for sure. Like you said, almost 20 points a game this year alone, and he's on a freaking minimum deal. Great pickup for them. That is a damn good pick. Whew, that's really good. And you got your shooting guard position down pat as well with Malik Monk. You know he's going to be providing you some buckets. All right, the next pick. I think I want to finish up my front court. Starting off with the power forward guy, he was in my player spotlight, so I got to put him into my team. Let's go, Naz Reid. Mr. Dub it down, get himself a bucket in the post. He's able to run the floor, and now adding the three ball, he has a good all-around offensive game, so I'm going to have him there. And I think playing alongside Chris Paul, that's going to be the perfect place for him, the perfect player to pair up with him, just to give him great opportunities and to set him up very nicely. And then someone I'm going to add, I'm going to get with my center now. To be honest, he should be starting, but the Hawks still haven't covered up their starting center yet. I think he's eventually going to take on that role soon. Give me Onyeka Okongwu, man. This guy's going to be a great defensive anchor. You know he's able to block shots. He's a good lob threat, so give me Onyeka Okongwu at the center position.
All right. So with that being the case, I feel like we can't talk six men without grabbing Bobby Portis. So let me get him and put him at the
Yeah.
4. And then at the 5, that's where things get really interesting because I feel like there's a lot of different ways you can go.
You
Man,
could you could put Bobby at the 5 as well. You know he could play.
you could put Bobby there, and that's not a bad idea either. The guy I'm gonna go with though, See, it's funny because I was trying to go with a couple of like outlandish names, but at the same time, there's just a handful of guys that I just really like that are playing well. One oddball that I'll pick that also does fit relatively well on this team, but also has played okay in spot minutes. Give me Christian Wood at the 5.
Ooh, he was one of those guys on my short list for my front court. So yeah, that's a damn good pick there, Christian Wood. Again, the defensive acumen is very, very questionable, but at the same
Yeah.
time, he knows he's going to produce on the offensive end. So I do like that pick with Christian Wood. Now I need my 3 position. It's just a matter of, do I want more defense or do I want a guy that could just, you know, fire away from 3? Because I just don't think I have that elite 3-point shooter yet. While you have someone like Malik Monk, even to a certain extent, Kelly Oubre, who's been really good from 3 as well this year. I'm actually going to go with someone who has looked like a bad contract, but to be honest, has finally like found himself a role. One of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Give me Duncan Robinson. I think Duncan Robinson, he's not the best defensively, of course, but
Mm.
he's, tall enough, long enough to kind of like hold his own there. And if you give him even an inch of space, one of the smoothest jumpers in basketball, let me have Duncan Robinson to finish out my team. All right, both teams are built. Jay, let's see who you have on your All NBA bench team.
On my All NBA bench team, we got Malcolm Brogdon at the 1, Malik Monk at the 2. We got Kelly Oubre at the 3, Bobby Portis at the 4, and Christian Wood to round it out at the 5.
Very, very good lineup. For my team, we got CP3 running the 1, Alex Caruso at the 2, Duncan Robinson running the 3. Then we have a front court of Naz Reid at the 4. Of course, I got to get my guy in the player spotlight in here. And also Onyeka Okongwu running the 5. How are you feeling about your team, man? I think like both these teams have a nice little can provide really good matchups here.
Hey man, not too much defense here, like you said beforehand. Kelly Oubre is probably the only one with some real defensive upside, but we got a lot of spacing, which I think is really good. We got a lot of 3-point shooting across the board, especially with Malik Monk and Christian Wood to a lesser extent. We got a couple of guys who are going to be a little bit more animated, at least on the defensive side, in
Yeah,
terms of Kelly Oubre and Bobby Portis, who are going to be at least high effort guys. I like us. I think we're going to be, more of an offensive team, though, I'd say.
yeah. I, I'm a bit different with mine. I mean, I have like a good, Alex Caruso, one of the best defenders on the perimeter, and Onyeka Okongwu is a pretty good defensive anchor. I don't
Mhm.
really have that creator on the perimeter, especially with the amount that you have on your roster, which might be an issue. But CP3 running the show, being able to get everyone involved, and of course I got Naz Reid at the 4 position, I think is being able to help. I think it would be a good matchup, these two teams against each other. Let us know down below which is the better All NBA bench team. Let us know down below. Jay, we have reached the final segment of the show, and it, of course, is the NBA quiz. And to be honest, the quiz from today, no really motivation. I just thought this was a pretty cool idea for a quiz, and I just wanted to see who, fits in this category. And I think there's a lot of guys here, you know, we'll never really get talked about on the podcast, but I think it's a good throwback guys that we're going to talk about on this list.
Okay.
So I need you, Jay, to name me the top 10 guys in career points who haven't made an all-star team.
Okay.
So these guys on the list, I'll tell you right now, a lot of these guys have played a long time in this league, but they haven't made an all-star team. And, this top 10, a lot of, classic guys on this list as well. But I think you're going to be able to knock this down. I'm going to give you the range. So the highest guy with points here is 19,419, and all the way down to 14,904. So Jay, let's see if you're able to get these stats.
Okay, man, that caveat is one of them ones, but I feel like I can think of a couple of dudes.
There's
Top
quite a bit of
scores
current
to
guys, so I think
not.
there's some guys, like,
There's a
I'm not
couple
gonna
of
say
current guys.
current guys. I think like how many guys here are still playing in the league? I
That's
think,
a good question.
let's see. I'll say that the 2 guys on this list. Okay, there's one who's like unemployed. I'll say that, and there's also one who recently retired. So,
Damn.
but there's a lot of guys post 2000, so I think you'll be able to get this.
Okay, so I'm gonna name some of my like favorite guys first, and then I'll start naming guys who I think might be a little bit more realistic and go from there. Is Monte Ellis on the list?
He was so close, man. Number 12.
Dang.
Number 12.
Oh, that's pain. That's pain. That's pain.
46 points off being being able to be on this list.
Is Jason Richardson on this list?
Bro, you are going around the edges right now. He's number 14.
Oh, that's pain, bro. Those are my boys too. I was just thinking of like guys who I thought were like high volume scorers. I've seen Jason Richardson at Mad All Star events, but I don't think he
Yeah.
was ever a participant. So,
I mean, he won the
um,
dunk contest. He won one of the like one of those damn good dunk contests. So, but that's about it, really.
is Lou Williams on the list?
Number 7, he has
Ooh,
15,593. Yeah, he's on this
okay,
list.
that means Jamal Crawford is on the list. Then has to be.
Number 1 on this list,
Okay,
Jamal Crawford.
let's
Oh no,
go.
actually, I lied. There was a motivation to this list because freaking Jamal Crawford the other day said that if he was a starter for this league, he would be a freaking Hall of Famer.
Yo,
This is what happens when we get freaking like these guys this guy's talking a bit crazy right there. So let's see. Yeah, Jamal Crawford's number 1 on this list though. Shout out to my guy. You got the two.
um. So is anybody on this list currently playing?
They haven't retired, but they just got released by a team like 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow. Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna get. Wait, I could get that one.
You could. He is a prominent figure, especially in like our era of watching basketball. This guy's been a prominent figure. I guess I'm surprised honestly he hasn't made an All-Star team, but I kind of get it. But he felt like one of those guys that he definitely should have made an All-Star team.
More known for West or East?
West.
Mm.
I would say West. Yeah, for sure West.
Rudy Gay?
It is Rudy Gay, number 4
Oh,
on this
let's
list.
go. Okay.
Number 4 on
Okay.
this list, 17,642 points.
Mm.
So let's see. We have 1, 2. Yeah, we got 2 more guys, 3 more guys post 2000. Then we got quite a bit of 90s guys, if that's able to help you as well.
I'm gonna just start naming people I think played for a while. Is Derek Fisher on the list?
No, he's not on this list. I don't think he hasn't really scored that much. But there is a post 2000s guy here who you don't think of as a scorer, but again, a longevity play. He's definitely more known as a passer, but I guess his longevity carried him to this list.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Also,
Derek Harper played for a while, right? Bulls guy.
number 6 on this list, Derek
Okay.
Harper, 16,006 points.
Jason Terry, he played for a long time.
Number 3 on this list, 18,881 points.
Again, I'm keep trying to think of guys that I know didn't make All-Star teams, but Jason Terry was like a high volume 3-point shooter, so like I guess that makes sense.
Also won
You said he was
man.
more known for passing. Western or Eastern Conference?
I would say honestly pretty even. He had like 2 like very memorable stints in both conferences. I'll say that he had one of the most random 50-point games ever though.
Can you name his last team? Or is that snitching?
Let me double check it. Is this snitching? Let me double check. He played 13 games at the end of his career for the San Antonio Spurs. I'll give that to you because that's definitely not snitching.
Oh, snap.
Very much journeyman at the end of his career, but yeah, I would say pretty memorable since in both. I would say I guess mostly West. I'll say mostly West. But
dang, okay, because now that you say the Spurs, because you say because I think the first person I would think of is Tracy McGrady, but he clearly made All-Star team, so that's not him.
He retired in 2016. He had like a 16-year NBA career. Yeah.
16? Who is this? Oh my God, who is this? He's more known for passing.
He's a point guard. He's a point. Again, when he had a random 50-point game
said equal stints. The equal stints thing is interesting. Is it like? Oh no, I don't know. I don't want to say that because I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know. Say it. I think you might be onto something.
Okay, so the person I thought of was Andre Miller because he played for the Nuggets and the Knicks, and you said equal, so I'm like,
no. So I would say I don't even say I said equals. So it is Andre Miller. He is number 5 on the list.
Okay.
278. But he had so he's most known on the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
But he also had his 50-point game with the Portland Trailblazers.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one. I was thinking about the fact that he used to be the secondary point guard on the Knicks, so he was and he was there for a little while.
It wasn't the Knicks. It was the 76ers.
Oh, it was the Sixers?
The Sixers, and
Sixers.
then and then he
Huh?
had some pretty good years. He had a year in 2002 where he averaged 16 and 11 assists per game with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, and he had a weird career, but yeah, it's Andre Miller on this list.
It was the Sixers. Dang, I was gonna say I got the colors mixed up, but it ain't even that. I could have
Yeah.
swore he was like the backup for them, but anyway,
So yeah,
the memory worked regardless. Hey,
Andre Miller is on this list. You're missing number 2. He's like an 80s 90s guy. This one,
okay.
I think that one might be the most difficult.
I was gonna say we'll do him last.
Yeah, let's see. You're missing. You have one more 2000s guy at number 10, and then you have two 90s guys and 80s/90s guys in the 8 and 9. But also, I think these are more prominent guys in like number 2. They're like more known.
More known as like we see them on TV. More known.
I just think their names are more known. I think more than number 2. I'll help you with number 9 to start off with. A coach for the Lakers.
Oh Jesus, you just burned. Yeah, you burned that one. That's definitely. It's got to be Byron Scott.
It is Byron.
Because any other coach for the Lakers, I'm not trusting them to be the highest scorer to not make All-Star team.
What are you talking about, man? Why are you dissing Luke Walton like that?
Because I said, oh Jesus, because I said Derek Fisher already, and that was my next best option. So since he was already cooked, yeah, Byron Scott,
yeah,
JJ Redick.
JJ Redick is on this list.
Wow.
So you're missing 3 more guys. We'll go with this next 80s 90s guy. A teammate of Michael Jordan over there in UNC. A teammate of Michael Jordan.
Oh, wait. Okay, there's 2 things Jalen knows about basketball: Bulls players and UNC basketball. Those are 2 things that I can't. I gotta live on those. You said they.
He was. I think he was definitely teammates with like Mike at some point when they were in UNC. Highly regarded coming out, but he turned out to be. I'll say this: he's like before his time in terms of the stretch 4.
Sam Perkins.
Sam Perkins at number 8.
Oh, clutch.
15,234. Yeah, he is there. He's a bit before his time. This guy was shooting like a solid amount of threes back in his day. But yeah, Sam Perkins there. Number 10, you should be able to get one of the most prominent guys on TikTok.
Is he like NBA media?
Yes, he is.
Okay, Richard Jefferson.
It is Richard Jefferson. 14,904. He's there at number 10. And number 2, probably the hardest one. One of the highest scoring for sure. He averaged like 16 points a game. Spent a lot of time. I'll give you his he spent a lot of time with the Kansas. What team was this? The Kansas City Kings to start off with. Then he stuck with them when he moved to Sacramento. Played with Phoenix. I mostly know him for his time with the Seattle Supersonics in the 90s. He was a bench guy for them, for that Sonics team with Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. He's like a bench guy there. Finished off his career with the Houston Rockets. Very, very common last name. If you think of just very common NBA last names.
Oh, okay. Well, it's either Johnson or Jackson or Williams.
The first one. Go with the first one. Go with the first one.
Okay, so it's Johnson.
Yeah. I don't know how much is gonna help you.
Dang, Phoenix has nothing to do with this because I was gonna say Joe Johnson, but Joe Johnson's been an All-Star team.
Yeah.
Is it Eddie?
It is Eddie Johnson. It is Eddie Johnson.
Okay, cool. I'm telling you, without the hints, I wouldn't have got that one. I ain't gonna lie.
That was gonna be the hardest one on the list. I was for sure.
80s Johnson. I'm like, oh, this could be a million people. The 80s and Johnson. Ooh, this could be a while.
Bro, I'm looking at his basketball reference page right now. Yo, his nicknames go crazy. Firstly, he went by Piggy, whatever that's supposed to mean. What? The smooth shooter, and also this is kind of a dumb nickname. The man who put the J in jump shot.
All right. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Pack him up.
Let's pack him up, bro. Hey, look, there's some classic names on this list, but yeah, Eddie Johnson. Yeah, I told you it was gonna be a tough one. But yeah, those are the top 10 guys with the most points in their careers who didn't make an All-Star team. Influenced by Jamal Crawford, who said that he was gonna be an NBA Hall of Famer if he was starting. So yeah, there you go. Let us know down below if you want to see any other quizzes. How do you feel with the draft or anything else in the show? Let us know down below. Jay, we've reached another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people?
Man, double uploads every single week. TikTok's going crazy. We're gonna start doing more than clips soon. TV's already doing vlogs. He's stepping out of his shell a little bit, going to games and stuff. It's about to be lit over here, man. We're only at the 10 to 12 game mark for a lot of these guys. When we start getting deeper into the season, we're gonna start talking trade scenarios. We're gonna start getting into coaches' hot seats. We're gonna start putting together trade packages. So open up your spot tracks. It's about to get lit over here. I'm getting hyped, bro. It's all, as the NBA season progresses, things are only gonna heat up, and that means we're gonna have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, Jay, 12 games in already, and we're already putting out this much content. Imagine how it's going to be throughout the season. So make sure you're following. Remember, the best day we make content over on our TikTok and Instagram. Show up on the YouTube, the podcast networks, all that good stuff. Find our individual links, Knockdown J TV on basketball. The routine jumper as well will be found in the description down below. And just show your love again, any way possible. We really do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Again, this is the end of the episode. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV signing out. That's Jay signing out. So take it easy, guys.
Peace.
Peace.